They did the MRIs, didn't find any of the MS, so they sent me home. And then my legs went numb. And they did the scans and they found some lesions on my brain and eventually on my spine as well. What we started noticing is the lesions, they started to essentially disappear. I still have headaches. I still have brain fog. I still have fatigue like you wouldn't believe. So I was like, well, something else is still off. Yeah, I think my symptoms started beginning of college. That would have been probably around 2005-ish. I think the migraines are probably related. My first symptoms of bad health, I would say, were migraines. I just thought that they were headaches at the time. It's like some people get headaches, no big deal. Take some Tylenol, take some Excedrin, go about your life. But having learned over the last 10 years about everything, I think that that was probably some of the onset was the constant migraines. And then from the migraines, it got into the brain fog. Then it got into the fatigue. Then it got into the gastrointestinal distress. Then it got into the aches and pains. Then it got into all kinds of just little weird things. And I just figured, well, it's got to be work. It's got to be school related, full-time job, full-time college type thing, super busy time. And never really thought anything of it. And then the optic neuritis hit. And my wife, she immediately thought that it was MS because she knows some other people with MS. And she kept telling me, it's going to be MS, it's going to be MS. I went to the hospital. They did the MRIs, didn't find any of the MS. So they sent me home and I thought, okay, everything's fine. And then over the years, the same kind of symptoms, they came and they went. I went from just eating regular junk food, fast food all the time, 3-4 times a day. I tried a ketogenic diet, a traditional ketogenic diet, super high fat, super low or almost no carbs basically, and a moderate amount of protein. I kind of played with that a little bit. That made me feel a lot better overall, but I still had some of the underlying issues. I'd still get my headaches and everything wasn't perfect. As I played with those things, I still thought I was fine. And then my legs went numb. And that was the big event that kind of sent me in to do more checking out. And then they did the scans and they found some lesions on my brain and eventually on my spine as well. And from there, when they told me that, one of the very first things I did is I went just straight into carnivore diet because I knew by this time I had already learned that people with autoimmune diseases, they do really well with carnivore diet. So it was just like, okay, fine, let's do this. And then I struggled on and off trying to stick to the carnivore diet because believe it or not, when you're first getting started with not eating anything but meat, it's a little bit tough. The cravings are wild, like you cannot believe sometimes. And from there, I went back for like every 6 months, you go back and you get more MRI scans of your brain and spine, and you work with your neurologist. I actually have 2 neurologists. I have the one at university, and then I also have a private practitioner neurologist as well. So they kind of work side by side. They know the other one exists, but I go to them independently, just with one set of MRIs, just to kind of always having a second opinion and everything. But I went in and I was like, hey, doc, what can I do? And they said, well, for MS, basically, we don't know what causes it. We don't know why some people get it and why some people don't get it. But we have a handful of information that says you should take vitamin D and you should check your blood levels of vitamin D. And then there was a plethora of disease modifying therapies, the DMT treatments. Essentially, they just suppress the ones that were recommended for me. They suppress your immune system. They're like a B cell modulator. I didn't like the idea of that. That sounded like a bad idea. I kind of wanted to try to figure it out. And I was like, well, I probably have a little bit of time because I'm young. I'm lucky that they ended up diagnosing me with the relapsing remitting version of it. Currently I have no like permanent disability that I know of. And then I told him I wanted to hold off on the medication and I was going to do carnivore diet and see how it goes and treat that. So I started doing that. I also started working with another doctor that I found, and he's all about visceral fat, getting rid of that inside you. So I went in to do MRIs for that. I saw that my insides were just completely filled up with visceral fat, which is super inflammatory and it can wreck your immune system. So I started working on that with him, dietary strategies, exercise strategies, things like that, focusing on sleep. And over time that started my visceral fat was starting to decrease. And at the same time, I started feeling better. And then as I was feeling better, I kept getting the MRIs with the doctor. And every time I went, I had a good checkup, a good follow up. They said, "Oh, hey, this is great. There's no new lesions. There's no active lesions. The ones that they saw even the first time, they weren't active, but because by the time that I had my lower body go numb, I was already kind of dialed eating healthier. I wasn't where I am now, and at the time I was still eating a lot of like the keto junk food. That there was a period in my life where I was basically living off of the chocolate chip cookie dough keto bars. I would eat 3 or 4 of them a day type thing, all kinds of stuff like that, which is terrible. Now I know that, of course. So every time I went to the neurologist, the checkup was good. It looks great. Your MRIs look great. Do you have any new symptoms? No. Okay, awesome. Hey, doc, what do you think about carnivore diet? Well, usually we see the plant-based diet do better for things like this. Everybody recommends the Terry Wahls diet for MS. It's kind of the gold standard, if you will. There's some good data on it. There's some attractive data out there for sure. So I kept doing the carnivore diet, and both my neurologists, they were on board. They were like, "Well, if this is what you want to do, we support you. We're gonna keep scanning you, keep following you, and making sure you're doing okay. If anything goes south, the medication is there as an alternative or an option." So I kept doing that. Went to the MRIs, came back. I've had so many MRIs now, it's hard to keep track of them. I've had probably 6 rounds of them over the last few years or so. What we started noticing is the lesions, the ones that were there, the non-active ones, they started to essentially disappear. So that was good. My neurologist told me they don't usually see that because normally they don't. You get the lesion and the lesion stays there. When you see it on future MRIs, it's just not active. They can tell the difference between the active and the non-active ones inside of the different contrast or no contrast MRIs that they do. Some of the lesions had already disappeared within that 6 month. They were there on the first one. They were not there on the second one. One of them was a pretty good size, and a couple of the others, some of these are just like little tiny dots, like specks. They're very small. And then some of the ones on my spinal cord, those are a little bit different. You see them and it'll like kind of flow through the cord. It'll be a gray white area, and you're looking at it and you're like, what is that? I can't even really tell what that is, but it'll be a lesion. And then you can see that shrink over time, like from MRI to MRI to MRI. It's hard to say exactly how long, but within 6 months, I saw improvement on the actual MRI images. So from that first scan to the second scan, and then from the second scan to the third scan, which was another 6 months. And then I've had another set or 2 or 3 after that for 6 months. And then the last time that I went, they both neurologists separately said, okay, you've reached the 2-year mark. Everything seems to be stable. We're not going to see you every 6 months. We want to see you once a year. So that's kind of like one of the stepping stones, whether or not an MS person gets on to the DMT medication. Once you kind of hit that threshold of when your doctors say, don't come back for a year instead of 6 months, that's always nice to hear. So regardless of the situation, if you're doing good for any reason at all, when they tell you that, I was pretty excited when they told me that. I felt like it's almost like I felt like I had achieved something, but at least for now, everything was fine. So my MRIs came back, the follow-up ones we were talking about, where they did the cervical and thoracic spine. And the radiologist took a look at them, and my report says that the 4 lesions that I've been tracking that are on my spinal cord, they've lessened in size and intensity. What that means is basically that they are going away. Hopefully, that means they're remyelinating. That's kind of hard to tell from the images. The MRIs are blurry in nature and a little bit difficult to read, but if you look where the arrows are, you should be able to see on the left-hand side, there's a little bit of a white area that runs vertical through the middle dark part. That would be the lesion. And then on the right side of the images, the second one, it shows it's a little bit smaller and less intensity. It's less bright. And again, it's not a 100% accuracy from before and after, just the MRIs were taken at 2 different times on 2 different MRI machines. One of them, I believe, was taken on a T3 powered machine, and the other one was on a 1.5. The follow-up was on a 1.5. But again, the one on the left was the before, and the one on the right is after. I was super excited to get that, and I just wanted to share that it's definitely possible to see improvements. What made you know that you were on the right track when the world says you're crazy? And well, I should say when most of the world says you're crazy. By trade, I'm a software developer, so I see everything through an engineering perspective. I see my car and my computer and my body the same way. I treat them mostly the same way. I understand that when you put good things in, you get good things out. And when you put bad things in, you get bad things out. So over those years, way back at this point, I always tell people 10 years. At this point, it's probably been 12 or 13 years. I had a friend, he was a coworker. We're still best friends. He came to work one day. We were both eating fast food every day. He's like, "Hey, Wayne, my wife, she's doing this thing called the keto diet. You're never going to believe this." And I'm like, "Okay, what is this?" And I'm like, "Oh gosh, this guy's crazy." He's like, "You cut out carbohydrates and you eat nothing but protein and fat." And I'm like, "What's a carbohydrate? I don't even know what this stuff is." And so I went down the rabbit hole and I found a bunch of doctors. Ken Berry was one of the first ones that I came across on the internet. I watched one of his videos. I liked his voice, so I binge watched the rest of his videos. And I was like, okay, he says I can eat bacon and eggs and steak and fried Brussels sprouts all day, every day, as much as I want. I'm good. I'm going to do this. So I started the keto diet. And then I started from there. I found some other doctors. Anthony Chaffee's one of them. He was talking about the carnivore diet at the time. And I was like, wow, that sounds really great. It makes a lot of sense. You know, the whole plants kind of have to defend themselves too. At the time, I wouldn't dare mention it to anybody because, like you mentioned, oh, you shouldn't eat vegetables because they might be killing you. This guy is a nut. He is crazy, and I'm kind of thinking I'm crazy at the same time. So I kind of had this base of understanding at the time, and then I started doing more research, reading all kinds of different books, and then the more that you read, and the more you listen to, the more people you find, the more books you find, you start to understand that my theory is if you get out of your body's way to heal itself, it's going to take care of itself. It's like, I don't think humans would have survived if people 20,000 years ago, if everybody got MS or everybody got some disease and keeled over, that we would have gone extinct, I think. So I really feel like when you get rid of all the junk, and there's so much junk today in the food system that it's hard to buy anything. Even some of the produce you have to watch out for, even some of the meat you have to watch out for. A lot of the meat, they put vegetable marinade injected into the meat. A lot of restaurants do it too. It makes the meat juicier. It makes the meat cheaper. At the same time, I can tell the difference. If I accidentally eat something like that, I get sick and I know what was in it. I can smell it when it's brought to the table. I'm very tuned into that. Just over time, I had learned all this information. Everything kind of made sense to me. I was like, wow, my body is kind of exactly like my computer, whether it's the keyboard, the mouse, the graphics card, the processor, memory, whatever, hard drive. If you put all of this junk in and you fill the drive and the memory up with junk from years and years and years of toxins, and it can't flush it out and it's not going to work right, your computer's going to run slow. It's not going to work. It's eventually going to give out, and you're going to be selling it on eBay for $100. So once I had learned all of that, I started to learn a little about autoimmune just because I had heard about it, and we had some family that had some autoimmune stuff also. From there, that I started reading, oh, autoimmune disease and carnivore, they kind of go hand in hand. There's a lot of buzz on it on the internet, videos, books, podcasts, everything that I could consume, I did. And so kind of when that happened, it's like I just made my mind up, okay, if this is a real thing, it's going to work. And I'm pretty good at making decisions. So I just kind of decided, you know what, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I stuck to it, and it worked out really well. And then you just start to learn more about the different types of autoimmune and how MS is the difference between like MS and like another one would maybe polyneuropathy or something like that, where MS, you don't catch MS. It's not something that you catch. It's what they call a cluster of symptoms in conjunction with the area of the brain and spinal cord that gets the demyelinating happening, that your nerves, the myelin sheath starts getting attacked and eaten by the immune system. If that's the case and it's not something that you can catch, I don't think that any exogenous thing that I'm going to put in me is going to fix the problem. The problem's coming from inside of me. So I already knew in the past, oh, this is a good point. I didn't think of this. This is probably one of the perfect point. I have really, really bad dandruff, psoriasis. Like 4 or 5 years ago, this shirt would have looked like snow. There would have been snow just for me scratching that. And I tried every kind of shampoo. I went to the doctor. They took plug samples, big old chunks of your scalp out, sent it off to the lab, told you had some kind of dermatitis. I don't even remember what it was, but they said, oh, we have these medications you can take, and try this cream. Here's some $100 a month shampoo, things like that. Tried a bunch of stuff, never took the medications because I still don't like doing that. Nothing worked, and the dandruff was still there, and the red itchiness patches, giant flakes that big around or so, if I can look at the camera, something like that, about the size of a nickel, they would just flake out and nothing worked. Well, when I went on to the keto diet, it took a while, and I realized it got better. It took a good 6 months, and I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? There's not a lot of flakes on my desk, like as I'm sitting at my desk at work. I'm like, okay. Then I noticed there wasn't a lot of flakes on my shirts. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then I kind of just forgot about it for a while. And then eventually, when I was trying to get into the carnivore diet, this would have been before I was diagnosed with MS. I was trying to get into the carnivore diet just because I wanted to, and I thought it was cool. Not really any other reason than that. Then I woke up one day and I was like, you know what? I don't remember the last time I've seen a flake in my hair. It's been a long time, and I don't use the dandruff shampoo or anything like that. That was really cool. And then I kind of like on and off the carnivore diet, started eating more stuff, started kind of eating broccoli and carrots and stuff, because like broccoli still tastes good to me. It's kind of weird, but I don't know why. But I started eating all that stuff, having some chips here and there out at restaurants, bread, things like that. The dandruff comes back. Okay, great. So what is it? So then you go back in, you go all the way to meat. Takes about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Dandruff goes away. Okay, start eating more milk, more yogurt, cream in the coffee. Dandruff comes back. Oh my goodness. Cut that out. It goes away. That kind of like was a self-experiment, and I've repeated this experiment. There's a handful of things that will bring my dandruff back within. It seems to be about a 2 to 3 week cycle. If I eat the stuff, dandruff comes back. Cut it out. It goes away. Takes 3 weeks to clear up. Almost to the day, it seems like. So I knew that there was a relation between the food and the autoimmune. I knew that my dandruff and the psoriasis, kind of use them interchangeably. That's probably not correct to say, but I knew that it was an autoimmune related thing. So, okay, your immune system's attacking something. So when the MS hit, it's an autoimmune thing. Okay, why is my immune system attacking me? This isn't right. So that's kind of like, I felt like, I've already been able to fix this small problem, like this acute small problem on my scalp through diet. I wonder if it's probably going to work for something else. I do know that also another one was arthritis in my hands, my feet, my knee. My left knee it would flare up so bad that I couldn't go bent knee to straight knee. It was extremely painful. Like standing up hurt. It was very painful. It felt like something was just tearing under my kneecap. That flares up when I eat the bad food. And I haven't eaten the bad food in years now, and my knee hasn't flared up, not a single time. So it doesn't matter if it's warm outside, cold outside, the knee doesn't flare up. It stopped flaring up when I quit eating all the bad food. That's another thing, the autoimmune part of it. It's like, okay, I have these little things here, here, and here that you eat. You don't eat the food that's flaring you up. You figure out what doesn't work for you, and you don't eat that, and your problems go away. So I kind of transpose that over to the MS situation, knowing that if I absolutely have to, I can fall back on the medication. And I feel at the time, I felt like it was worth the risk, if you want to call it a risk, of not taking the medication to try it my own way. It works pretty good. And part of it was fear. So I guess on the fear side of it, I don't like the idea of having to have my quality of life dependent on an exogenous chemical that's provided to me by another entity, whether it's the drug company or regulation from the government or whatever it is. I don't like that, because I do know that if it's available, that's probably a good thing. But I do know in 4 or 5 years down the road, that could go away. My access to that could be completely removed, either due to my fault or not any fault of my own. So I was a little bit afraid of that, because I know a lot of people that have been on medications, and whether it's insurance reasons or anything else, they no longer have access to that medication and their health suffers because of it. So I kind of went the other direction and said, okay, I need to fix this myself. So I kind of knew that I wanted to try this. And so I just went in there, and it's like, this is what my plan is. This was what I wanted to do. I found Dr. Sean. his work made all the sense in the world to me with the visceral fat stuff. That really resonated with me. So I became a patient of his. I flew up to Minnesota. I got the MRI scans. We sat in his house for 3 or 4 hours for my initial visit, and I started losing the visceral fat and feeling better. And then as you feel better, the confidence in it just keeps going up. Once you start to see the results, you just really start to feel great. But yeah, it's more of a, sometimes I guess to my demise, I can be overconfident in certain things. It's more of like a gut feeling. Like I just knew that that was the right thing to do. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's like you just kind of go with your gut feeling on things sometimes. And I've learned over the years to quit second guessing myself and go with my gut feeling, because a lot of times it's right. Sometimes it's not. It is what it is, but I had a very strong feeling about this. So plus it was just exciting. I mean, I love hamburgers and steak, so why not, right? That was going really good. And then I was doing really well, and I was like, man, I feel great. I'm doing great. The MRIs are great. The MS is seemingly great, but I still have some symptoms. I still have headaches. I still have brain fog like you wouldn't believe. I still have fatigue like you wouldn't believe. You wake up at early in the morning and you roll out of bed and you feel like you haven't slept in 3 or 4 days and you're just ready to pass out right there. Still get up, go to work, go to the gym, do all of those things. So I was like, well, something else is still off. I'm doing everything good. I'm not cheating on the diet. I'm not eating any little snacks or candies or anything like that. Exercise is great. Sleep is great. What's going on? I should be feeling better. I've heard all of these people, they go on the carnivore diet and oh my gosh, everything's perfect. And I was like, maybe there's something else. So I started looking around, and I actually discovered that a lot of people that have MS also have issues with mold. So that was interesting. I had never thought anything about mold. I don't smell mold in the house. I don't smell mold at work. I knew that I'd been around mold in my past. So I got a practitioner, actually nutrition with Judy, and they did a whole slew of fancy blood tests on me. And sure enough, I'm positive for everything. I'm positive for the genetic defect that causes CIRS, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. And then I also have the haplotypes where that's kind of like the genetic trait where the ones that I have make me more susceptible to fatigue and brain fog and things like that. So I'm like, okay, this seems to make sense. So I got a doctor to help treat with that, and I started on the treatment with that. And since I've started the treatment with that, I've seen as much improvement that I saw before the mold treatment. I've seen at least as much improvement again. I don't have brain fog anymore. I don't have fatigue anymore. I should say I rarely have it anymore. Every now and again, I'll have like a day where I'm just kind of, ugh, and I chalk that up to bad sleep at this point. At this point, I'm having more good days than I am bad days. Most of my days are good days, where it used to be 5, 6, 7 years ago, most of my days were bad days. And every now and again, I would have a good day, and I would never know why, but I was like, oh man, I feel great on this day, so I'll take advantage of it or whatever. But now I have mostly good days since I've been treating that mold. And then I've been doing more research just on my own study, and they're finding that the chronic inflammatory response syndrome can be responsible for all kinds of autoimmune problems that most people go to the doctor for and they get treated. Arthritis is one of them. Bowel syndrome is another one. All kinds of stuff. MS is definitely one of them. The MS one it's just near to my heart because that's my world, right? So it was just interesting. The more kind of I dug and found about it, the more there was. And as I did the treatment, there's like a bunch of different steps you do. You start out, got to clean your house, clean everything. My house wasn't really that bad, but we're still in the process of cleaning it. But I had a lot of mold exposure in my past. Growing up, there was mold in the building where we lived. There was always funky smells in the hallways, the bathrooms of schools growing up. And then I had a job one time where I didn't know it at the time, but there was these easels where I built signs, and they were just covered in black mold. Like this stuff, you could scrape it with a paint scraper. And I did that once a month. I would scrape the black mold off of these wooden easels that always were soaked with water. I'd put it in a bucket and take it out of the trash. So I was just always breathing this stuff in, like not 24/7, but essentially every day working full time. I think that just overall toxic load kind of led to the MS. slowly but surely, because I started that job right around the time that I started noticing symptoms, right as I was starting college. So everything doesn't kind of line up perfect, but it's with enough gray area that you can kind of see a trend of things. So I think just the combination of diet being toxic and mold being toxic, just a lifetime of that kind of led me to this. Most people can detoxify it just fine. A small number of the population, they can't. I know it sounds crazy when I say that. Like, as I say this out loud, everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, it's just some mold. And I used to think that too. It's like, this just some mold. It's like, it's mold. Is that a fungus? Is it a mushroom? I eat mushrooms. It can't be that bad. I mean, what are we talking about? You know? But no, this stuff is real and it's wild. But once you do the test, if you have it and you've seen the improvements, it's hard to argue with results. I've seen super great results so far. I still have a little bit a ways to go, but it's really amazing that, and I really feel like I found something. It's the first time I've ever been able to like sit down and be like, okay, why did I get MS? What is this? Okay, I don't get MS. What is MS? Okay, what would the doctors say if I ask them to define when I'm cured of MS? And then it's like you extrapolate backwards from there and arrive at, it's just a classification for a cluster of symptoms that you have. I view it kind of as you don't fix the MS. You have to fix whatever caused that cluster of symptoms that everybody calls MS. I look at it kind of in a backwards, different way than a lot of other people, but it makes sense to me. So, and I've had good luck. And I think part of the reason that I have my viewpoint around this whole subject is because I was lucky early on, where I caught it early, if you will, and it didn't immediately have a lot of disability. Because if I would have woke up and couldn't walk or something and was in a wheelchair, I bet you I would have a different viewpoint on it, where maybe I wouldn't have been so confident in my do-it-yourself kind of exploratory treatment to find all of these things. But the inflammation from the visceral fat side of things exacerbates everything bad that's on the inside of you, and health-wise that happens. So I'm working to get rid of that. And then I'm also working to fix the mold treatment side of it as well. And I have a feeling, and I've already seen this happen, the more I've progressed through the mold treatment and the more, I guess, more better that I have gotten, I feel like it's easier to get rid of more visceral fat. I've lost more of it when I check MRIs. You check it with an MRI just like your brain. You lay in the scanner. It's the same exact scanner. They just take slices right at about your belly button. And you can see the fat. It shows up as white on the MRI. And I can see before and after of improvements. As I continue through the mold and my immune system is being fixed, if you will, I have a feeling that I'll be at an accelerated rate of reducing that visceral fat, which is going to have a compounding effect of reducing my overall inflammation that lets my immune system naturally correct itself, which is what the mold treatment is doing in the first place. So I have a feeling that hopefully everything just continues and it just becomes exponential, and I just keep getting better all around is what I'm trying to fix. Just get all the bad stuff out, get the inflammation out. Some inflammation is good, exercise inflammation, things like that. But the bad stuff that I'm talking about, that stuff, I don't want aches and pains when I'm 90 years old. I don't want psoriasis. I want to be able to run around and do all those things when I'm 80 and 90, hopefully 100. My goal is 120. It's kind of weird. So if I don't make it, I don't make it, and it won't bother me, I guess. But that's my goal. That's what I tell everybody. My takeaway is, I don't know. Like, there's a ton of takeaways, to be honest. I used to think that there was one way of doing everything. I don't think that anymore. You got to have an open mind. You got to receive new information and be able to analyze it, process it, think about it. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. Ultimately, whether it's good or bad for somebody else doesn't matter. What matters is it good or bad for you? Because somebody can, for diet, for example, somebody can eat a carrot and they feel great. Somebody can eat a carrot and they can be keeled over. Somebody can eat pork and be great. Some people are allergic to fish or chicken or whatever. So you got to kind of find what works for you. For me, it was quit worrying about what everybody thought. Once I started doing that is when I really let myself start experimenting and not trying to feel weird when we go out to eat. And you're like, okay, well, there's chips and salsa and burritos and tacos. We're at the Mexican restaurant and everybody else is eating all this stuff. And like, no, I just want the plainest ground beef pile on the plate that you have. And I used to feel weird for the longest time for ordering things like that. And then one day it's like just a switch went off my head and it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to do this. Like the server doesn't care. No, I started realizing nobody cares what you're doing overall. And it was more of a perception of what I thought everybody else thought about what I was doing. So, and it turned out not to be so bad, but yeah, everybody's different and everybody has to find their own way. And I feel like with anything, with any type of system, you get in what you put out, or you get out what you put in. For some people, just like the standard treatment of care, if they're happy with that and it worked for them, I don't have anything against it. I think it's great. If it makes you happy and it makes you feel okay and you think you feel good enough, that's fine. If that's not good enough for you, or you're like me and the thought of having to be dependent on an exogenous chemical forever that could go away or be removed from the market or taken away at any time that dictates my quality of life, I didn't like that. So that's kind of one of the reasons that I've tried to figure this out. And then I think I mentioned in the beginning, I kind of view everything through an engineering lens, a development lens, just like software. Everything's designed to work a certain way. And when it's broken, you can put all the Band-Aids and fixes on top of everything that you want, but you'll never fix the root cause. And that's what I'm really after. I'm really after fixing that bug. I think about it as a software bug within me. I got to fix that. It's what I do all day at work, and I kind of treat my body the same way. So that's where figuring out the carnivore thing, figuring out the mold thing, finding a handful of doctors that are laser focused on you, on what you want, instead of the general practice, which is kind of get you through the system real quick. Once you find some good people to kind of bounce off ideas off of, your doctors included, your health really starts to go in a great direction. So everything that I've done from my doctors now has improved my health. I don't get the standard recommendations, which is awesome. So I see everything in life pretty much, I see as an equation that you can solve. You can balance that equation. You got to figure it out what it is, whether it's you got a flat tire, you got MS, or your kids are running around the house screaming. We have 2 little girls. Sometimes they're unruly. Most of the time they're great, but some days it's rough. I'm not going to lie. I feel like everything is solvable for the most part. The only unknown is what the answer is and how good to perfect can you make that answer. The answer to the question might not be what you want it to be, but it might be the best that you can get it. That's what the target is to solve the equation for the best that you can.